and change it. So let's not be too hard on ourselves. And that's why we have long-range plans. But there are also things you can do in the short term. So this part is about expanding your mind in terms of what you think is possible. Because look, we all have a frame of reference, right? I'm going to guess the average age in here is maybe 50. And so you know what you've seen for the last 50 years, and you've probably read a little bit, and you've been maybe overseas and seen some things. But the reality is we are sort of victims of our limitations in frame of reference, all of us. So let's talk about what's happening. For one thing, for those of us that are almost 50, like myself, younger people have much less interest in driving everywhere. And so they will move somewhere where they don't have to drive. They have their phone. Their phone took the place of their car. They would rather be sitting in a bar with their friend, hanging out and spending money on beer and be on the internet than they would behind the wheel for 2 hours a day commuting. And they're willing to make less money. The other thing is, college kids coming out of school have on average $100,000 worth of debt. So they can't afford to buy a car anyway if they wanted to. So this is a 2014 number. Many of you have probably taken Ubers and Lyfts. This is before Uber and Lyft really took off. So in my hometown, Washington, D.C., 88% of people moving to the city are not bringing a car or buying a car. Now it's up above 90%. So there are places where you have really good land use, transportation-oriented development, we call it, where we're building high density close to transit. We have a lot of options for active transportation, walking, biking, scooters, all kinds of stuff. And we make it very visible through marketing programs. So people come and visit first. They see all these options and they say, you know what? I'll pay an extra $500 a month and I'll live near the metro and I won't spend $900 a month to have a car. And even with all these cool technologies and all this stuff that's happening, when you talk to younger people, they say, I still want to be close to the transit station, right? Because it's not so much about moving people. Yes, I'll take transit sometimes. It's more about everything that's organized around that transit node. It could be a commuter rail station. It could be a bike share station. But what you'll find is when you locate or co-locate multiple transportation options, all of a sudden you get more development, you get the restaurant, the bar, the doctor's office, right, the grocery store, and it becomes a community, it becomes a node. But we do have a lot of these new business models, and they're lowering costs to get around. You can get on a bike share in my hometown for 28 cents a day, unlimited use, right? That's pretty affordable. And when you have these young people coming out of school, or older people that want to age in place, they are not into the idea of hyper-consumption that we were all into in the 20th century. Everybody wanted a couple cars, a white picket fence, a swimming pool, all of this stuff. People are more into this idea of sharing things, shared vehicles, shared scooters, community. This is a picture from Copenhagen. Some of these pictures I took, some are off the internet, but when I was in Copenhagen a couple years ago, which is an amazing place for biking and for transit, not for driving so much. So if you want to buy a car there, right? Let's say you want to buy a Toyota Camry. Here would be $30,000. There, don't cringe, there'd be a $60,000 tax. So it'd be a $90,000 car. But that $60,000 goes into the transit system. So almost nobody has a car, because the transit is so amazing. There's trams running down every street, there's bike share everywhere. So when you go to the airport, instead of the big rental car counter, there's these giant screens saying for 80 kroner a day, whatever that is, I think it's like 10 bucks, you get unlimited access to all the transportation. Not only that, you get unlimited access to the museums, the Tivoli amusement park downtown, the bike share system. And then it's not just about making it easy, like frictionless virtually to use it, but notice how physically you can see where to go. You can bring your bike on the train. I jumped on, in Copenhagen, took my bike that I had to Sweden, jumped off and biked to where I needed to go. I was in Amsterdam and Stockholm for 2 weeks with my family, with 2 kids, a stroller, and au pair. And we never got in a car the whole time in 2 weeks. So this stuff has a real impact on how people move around and how affordable society is for people. We tend to think, by the way, that like, well, we have this road system, we got to keep investing in it, right? So we're going to spend the money somehow. It's just a matter of where you spend it. And then depending on where you spend it, you get these externalities like pollution and other things that you got to pay a lot of money in the back end to clean up. So when I was in Chicago running that DOT, we said, you know what? We're going to do something really radical. And in our complete streets document, our big planning document, we're going to say this, that we're putting people first. And we assumed that we're going to get a lot of backlash, like AAA and others. We got no backlash, because it's hard to argue with putting people first. You know, for decades we've been putting the car first. And where has it gotten us? 1.24 million deaths per year worldwide. So who knows what the #1 killer of young people is in the United States, 10 to 19? Anybody? Car crashes. It's not coronavirus, it's not HIV, it's car crashes. It's a health epidemic. But we take it as the cost of doing business, right? We accept it. So we said we're going to reorient our streets towards people who want to walk and bike. And so there were simple solutions like this, you know, 4-lane street, 4.5-lane street. We took 1 lane and made it a 2-way cycle track. And we used digital technology at the intersections to change lights when cyclists were there or when cars were there. We used sensors. And there was actually no impact to the throughput of automobiles. Because the other thing, that's a bit of a fallacy that we think, is like, hey, we need to expand the roadway because there's congestion. And first of all, everybody thinks they have congestion, and most people don't actually have congestion. But when you expand the roadway, it actually only helps on average for 2 months, and then you have more congestion because psychologically you're telling people to drive, right? But the other thing is, in an urban environment or a town environment where you have a stop sign or a light every block or two, you can't go fast, right? So it's not about fast, it's about organized throughput. And we don't optimize our signal systems. Instead, we keep building extra capacity. And part of that is that the road builders want to build more roads. It's a stimulus program, but it costs a lot of money. Other things you can do, we had a lot of these unsafe 5-way intersections in Chicago, so we made them art projects. And through public art, we also sort of hid the engineering that had to be done to make them safer. There was a bit of study that went in, but you can do these in a couple days in terms of putting them in. So you have other places like Barcelona that are saying, you know what, we've got a climate crisis, we've got a fatality crisis, injuries. We want to cut 60% of our emissions out, 60% of our traffic, and so they came up with this idea for super blocks. So they have these like 5x5 neighborhood areas, and the first step is to say no left turns. So what happens? So when you turn into the neighborhood, you have to turn right back out. Pretty simple. So you can't drive through the neighborhood. And then phase 2 is you eliminate through traffic completely, unless somebody lives in that area or it's a delivery truck. And at first, really controversial. People are like, I don't want that, that's terrible, it's horrible. By the way, all good ideas are very controversial at first. You may know this. Because we have people that are on average 50, you've probably experienced it over, this is true. And now, everybody wants super blocks. Once they saw the quality of life, now people are competing to get super blocks, and they want to build 500 of them in neighborhoods throughout Barcelona, because this is what people want. They want livability, they want quality of life, they want to be able to walk to everything. They don't want to spend 2-3 hours a day in their cars, or worrying about their kids getting run over. Who's been to San Francisco? Anybody here? Okay. So Market Street is sort of a famous street in San Francisco. 10 years ago, I think, they floated the idea of closing it to cars, and people were like, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Recently, unanimously, the the city council voted to close the street to cars. It's been a huge success already. And you have other places like Tucson, Phoenix, other places. I know light rail is controversial here, or streetcars. I know you probably can't build them, but you can do BRT. There's all kinds of interesting transit projects happening around the country with very high returns on investment.